Yes, we could do harm. That admission from the psychiatrist in charge of the 100 Letters suicide study, which calls for people to submit suicide notes in the name of research. The study that aims to analyse suicide notes for themes is being carried out by the Key to Life charity, which is fronted by comedian, New Zealander of the Year and mental health advocate Mike King. But despite serious concerns the research could be putting lives in danger, the charity refuses to suspend it. The study doesn't have ethical approval, and following scores of complaints, the Ministry of Health has asked for it to be halted immediately until it meets all requirements. Psychiatrist Dr. Siale Foliaki is the chair of the Key to Life Charitable Trust. He says he accepts there is real risk to what they are doing, but argues there might be benefits too.
I think you should always be concerned about the potential of any activity within our community to trigger people that are close to the activity itself. So when I think about somebody that might have lost a loved one, and the fact that we'd like to learn something about events of, people taking their lives or attempting to take their lives, if we can learn something useful and on balance we think that the good we could do is greater than the potential harm, I think from a personal perspective, I think we should move forward. But
so are you saying this is prepared? Are you saying that you're prepared to take the risk with this study?
I think we should seriously consider the validity of undertaking this work if the potential benefit does outweigh the potential to cause harm.
But have you done any analysis on that? Because, as you point out, the Health Ministry has raised concerns with you about this. So has your study gone before the Ethics Committee?
Yeah, look, at this stage, we still haven't made a full commitment to whether we turn this into a study of the type that you can publish in an academic sense.
So have you changed your minds about that, Doctor? Because on the 10th of September, the charity put out a press release. It said new study into end-of-life letters. The word study is repeatedly used there, and it says the study, the first of its kind in New Zealand, will look to find practical answers as to why so many New Zealanders are taking their lives. You already determined it was a study.
Yeah, look, and I think we need to rethink that position. I think it potentially still can be a study, but I think there's potentially a way to move forward that doesn't necessarily represent what our earlier public releases have stated. And I think that's an important thing to do, because I think this is a very sensitive issue.
So you think that there could be problems? You're backing away from it as a study?
I don't think we should back away from it. I think we should move towards it. I think that, we as a trust have to seriously consider the formed opinions of other people within our community, particularly, Crown agency like the Ministry. If they have concerns, we should take the concern very seriously.
So why haven't you responded to the letter that they sent to you expressing a long list of concerns about this study? Why has the Trust not responded?
I think there will be a response in time. I think it's one of those issues that does take consideration.
So by when will you get back to them? Because it's serious concerns that have been expressed that this study could trigger vulnerable people. It could cause copycat behaviours, and there's concern about the data that you are collecting. So serious issues. What's your timeline for getting back to them?
Look, I think, a full board meeting, we've got one left this calendar year, so it probably won't be prior to this calendar year completing, probably early in the new year.
Didn't you have a board meeting yesterday?
We did, and at that.
So why didn't you discuss it then and get a response for the ministry?
So we didn't get a response to the ministry because we didn't have a full representation of the board at our board meeting yesterday. And I do think that our opinion as to the way to go forward hasn't been completely decided just yet, but we certainly will get there.
Okay, so I just want to go through a list of things, and I'd like you to give me some yes or no answers to these. So, did you put the study before an ethics committee?
Not yet.
So, no. Have you got a study protocol?
Yes.
Have you got a lead researcher, and who is that person?
So we've been in contact with a number of people, and at this moment in time we have not yet got a lead researcher, but we don't know whether or not we're going to follow this pathway. But
Have you got a peer review protocol? All of these things are requirements of the type of study that you have said you are doing. So have you got a peer review protocol?
We would put one in place if we were going to move forward with the study.
But you don't have one and you're already collecting letters. You're already collecting the research. How many letters have you got now?
They're in the hundreds now, and I couldn't tell you the exact number as of today. We received some more in the mail as of yesterday.
So can you see the fact that you have already hundreds of letters? You have already commenced the study, the research, yet you have not adhered to the guidelines for ethical research. Can you see how that's a problem?
I can see how that's a problem, absolutely.
So how are you going to correct it? Because they've asked you to stop collecting letters, haven't they? So have you stopped collecting letters as requested?
No, I think we've got a responsibility. If members of the community are still sending letters, then those letters have to be received and held in an appropriate, safe place.
So how are you storing that data, that information?
Under lock and key.
Under lock and key, that's your security?
Absolutely.
So is none of it... some people can electronically submit information, can they not?
Yeah, that is my understanding. And
so how are you protecting that?
We've got some fairly tight security around our safety of our IT, and that's of a very high standard. And I'm not overly concerned about that. My main concern is about ensuring that if we move forward with the study as it stands, that we do all the things that we should have done to get it to this point. But
you're already moving forward. You're already moving forward with this study, Doctor. You have got hundreds of letters that you have already collected, and the requirement is that for a study, ethical approval is required to prior to beginning the research, and the Ministry of Health says it cannot be given retrospectively. So
that's correct.
This is, by definition, an unethical research then, isn't it?
Well, I think there are two separate concepts. I think you're describing there's a proper process that you should go through to be given certification that you've gone through a process that says this is a safe and ethical project. Whereas, we feel as an organisation that yes, that should have been an important process that we followed, but it doesn't mean that our process and our project is unethical as it stands.
Well, why didn't you go through the process? Why didn't you do it properly?
Well, I think it's a really good question. I think that in retrospect, I think we might have done it differently.
Do you know why the charity didn't go through the process?
I think that it was an idea that had enormous merit in our minds. And I think when we, look at the concerns that agencies like the Ministry have pointed out to us, when I think about that, I think to myself, it's time to potentially check the process and see if there's a way that we can, from this moment forward, go forward in a way that is safe and considered and learn from having done the process potentially in a way that wasn't ideal.
Do you accept that this process could actually be unsafe as you are running it now?
Oh, look, I think that due consideration about the triggering effect that calling for these letters for people that are very close to a tragedy of the type that we talk about in terms of completed suicide, I absolutely accept that.
So you accept that you are involved in an unsafe process here. You're a psychiatrist.
Oh, yes, I am. And there's not a strong body of evidence that says that the process of asking for people to send us information of a very sensitive nature, that there is a strong body of evidence that says that is a dangerous thing to do. There isn't that body of evidence. But I, at a psychiatrist, as an individual clinician and as a person that cares about this particular issue, I'm prepared to accept that, yes, that the process may not necessarily have been as well thought out as it could have been or should have been. I'm prepared to accept that.
That sounds a bit gung-ho when you're talking about people's lives here.
Gung-ho is a strong term. I don't think it's gung-ho, but I do think that, that somebody in my position should be prepared to sort of accept that it could have been done better. I need to be able to accept that. And I do want to accept that, and I do want to do something about the situation that does potentially reduce the potential harm that this process could have caused.
Okay,
and I want to do that.
So the thing that the Ministry of Health is suggesting that you could do is suspend this project now until you sort this out. Will you commit to suspending it?
What I will commit to is getting a board decision that's well informed and would take all the information and consider what we should do after a decision is made.
But you're saying that won't come until next year. So for several months, this was launched on 10th of September, you're prepared to take the risk that this research, this study could do harm. You're prepared to take that risk?
But I'm also prepared to consider whether or not this might do enormous good, Lisa. And so,
but it could still do harm, and that is the concern, isn't it, here? You could do harm.
Concern.
So are you prepared to take the risk you could do harm by waiting and not suspending this study while you come to a full board decision? Is that responsible?
I think we're talking about two different things now. I think there is the risk, and that risk is real. Yeah, and we need to make a decision as to how we move this thing forward. Yep, we should follow due process and allow that process to take place. I think, can I say to New Zealand public at this moment in time that we're definitively stopping the process? No, I can't say that because
Why
I can't
not?
represent the entire board. Because I think there's a process that should be followed.
If it was your choice, would you stop it right now until you get this sorted out?
Yeah, but that then applies to me as an individual, and this conversation is about me being in an interim role of being chair of our organisation, and there are other parties, there are other members of that organisation that I can't represent, so I can't answer the question the way that you've put it to me.
But you're a psychiatrist. Don't you have an undertaking to do no harm? So I'm asking you personally then, if you could suspend this, would you?
I feel like it could do enormous good as well. And so at this moment in time...
But doing good doesn't eliminate the harm that you may also do in the process. So I ask you again, don't you have an undertaking as a medical professional to do no harm? You have identified to me that there is a risk and you may be doing some harm. So personally, would you halt this if you could?
I think we could halt it if, I could certainly, put it to the board as of here and now, we should halt this. What I'm saying to you is that the process that we should follow, but you're asking me a slightly different question. You're asking me at a personal level, will this, should I stop it? As a psychiatrist, do I feel like I should stop it? And my response to you is this, that a lot of activities that occur in society carry a risk, and they also they carry the potential to do good. And so a lot of the decisions that we make are of that balance, of trying to balance up the risk versus the potential benefit. And at this moment in time, what I'm saying to you is that I think that there is potential benefit in this, and we just need to consider, what steps that we take to be able to potentially get that benefit and actually mitigate and manage the risk.
In the meantime, should people still send you letters?
Look, I think if there are New Zealanders that kind of believe in getting some valuable information out there into our community, if they believe in what we're doing, if they believe that what we're doing is potentially a beneficial thing, then at this moment in time, no, I don't think we should stop people from sending letters to us.
And that psychiatrist, Dr. Siale Foliaki, who is the chair of the Key to Life Charity Trust.